work in the oil and gas industry, but I came to the oil and gas industry through environmental consulting. So I have a real passion for ensuring that our conversations about sustainability are inclusive of traditional fuels, and also that the traditional fuels like oil and gas are talking about sustainability. I advocate that the oil and gas industry should be more actively a part of discussions about addressing climate change, but I also argue that those invested in addressing climate change should be more inclusive, create a bigger tent. Because if we're going to address climate change, we need to have all the solutions on the table, particularly fossil fuels, where 86% of all energy is currently coming from. So my organization represents oil and gas operators in Colorado, and I consider that my job is both to put the best foot forward for the industry, but also to bring out the best in the industry. So we do a lot of engagement with our communities, with our regulators, and with our members to ensure that we really have an integrated role in our communities and in our state to ensure that we're working together, to ensure that we're producing energy, but we're producing it responsibly. In Colorado, we have a 100-year history of oil and gas development, and so a lot of the things that people worry about when they're new to oil and gas development aren't the things that they actually end up being concerned about once you have development happening in your community. So a lot of what our organization does is organize regular meetings that brings together community members, local leaders in the oil and gas industry. And it's in those forums where you do the hard work of saying, how are we going to produce this resource? How are we going to use it? How are we going to make sure that your needs are met and your needs are met? And so the actual work of oil and gas development doesn't happen on the fringes and the sound bites, either ban fracking or drill baby drill. The actual work is kind of boring and messy and takes a lot of time, and it's people coming together to talk about, should our well be here or here? Should we have a sound barrier that looks like this or this? And it's that engagement that actually helps a community both come closer together, but also have a really viable, strong, diverse economy. I think there's a lot of reasons that people who might normally consider themselves opposed to domestic oil and gas development can get excited about it. And the main one is that the United States is the only economy in the world that's reduced our carbon emissions. And we've reduced it down to 1992 levels. In fact, we're going to meet our Kyoto Protocol goals simply by converting from coal-fired electricity generation to natural gas. So this is something that we can all really think about. How can we continue to make this progress by embracing traditional fuels that are being used more responsibly? On another side of this, we're reducing our imports of foreign oil dramatically. And when you use an energy that's produced closer to home, it's more energy efficient. So you're not using energy to transport energy. So these are things that are important parts of the conversation around oil and gas. Right now, 99% of all fuels are still using traditional oil resources. And while that's the case, we need to think about how can we use it closer to home? How can we use it more efficiently and responsibly? And if we're engaging in those conversations, then we're going to continue to raise the bar on how we're producing energy responsibly. World energy demand is expected to double by 2030. And 90% of that increase in demand is coming from the developing world. In the developing world, where people don't have access to energy, the quality of life is really much poorer. So as we think about these global sustainability issues, we can't forget those that currently don't have access to energy. When you don't have access to energy, you don't have access to transportation, to lighting. You're cooking your dinner over things like dung or coal. And so access to affordable energy is the single most important thing that improve quality of life. And it makes sense if you think about it. It decreases mortality rate, increases life expectancy, decreases fertility. So as we have these conversations about sustainability, access to affordable clean energy is really going to be an important part of the conversation.